Hey, sweet soul. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me. In today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what it takes to be able to call yourself a professional tarot reader. I got a list of questions the other day from a sweet soul who had some questions regarding, like, what does it take to become a professional tarot reader? What does she need to get certified in? How should she go about it? How should she price? You know, lots of these really, really useful, very common questions. And I have 3-4 years of experience in the tarot market, but also in two areas. So I resell, obviously, but also I conduct sessions and services and price and market myself accordingly there as well. So I'm doing two sides of this coin quite well. I'm quite proud of myself and the work that I've been able to do. I've been a 6-figure seller for 2 years now, so things are going pretty well on this side of the fence. So I do think I have a little bit to contribute and a little bit to offer to this question. So let me just read off her questions, and then I'm going to answer them as best I can. In order to call myself a professional tarot reader, would I need to complete some sort of course and receive a certificate? If so, do I have any recommendations? So I think if you take some time to visit with the tarot community, there's going to be some polarization between be certified or don't be certified. So my camp is a little in the middle. And the reason that I say middle is because I don't like being so black and white when it comes to things like that. I don't think it is as clear. I think it depends on the person who is receiving the certification and who is watching for a certification. Because as of right now, the way I understand it is that there are no governing bodies to regulate and monitor. Sorry, I just noticed I have an ant on my altar. to moderate and regulate behaviors that are happening within the tarot community. And in some instances, I think we could benefit from having some sort of regulation so that we can weed out harmful practitioners. But then the question ends up being, who's the one that gets to make those judgment calls, right? So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed question. And when it comes specifically to the certification, I don't think one needs to have a certification in order to be able to call themselves a professional reader. I think sometimes a certification can give you structure. It can give you confidence. It can help you, for instance, feel a little bit more comfortable and maybe give you like a foundation of experience under your belt. Maybe not even experience, but a foundation of learning. And I think that could be useful, but I've yet to hear someone ask me, what are your certifications? And then for me not to get a job because I don't have a said certification. So I don't think certifications are super important when it comes to becoming a professional reader or accepting money for your readings. It's not like being a doctor, being a lawyer, or any of those things. So with that, without that certification, yes, anybody could say they're a professional reader. Okay, go ahead and try it, see how it works out. But I do not believe that certification is necessary to be able to call yourself a professional reader. If I do, then, so I think the second part of her question, do I have any recommendations? I've done a few courses. I've done a few classes. Actually, I've done a lot of classes. I've done a few courses that are a little bit more structured. And I'm not a fan, but that's personal to me. I'm not really a fan of a structured course that leads to certification. And I think for me, because I have decided and determined what it is that I want out of being a reader. I have decided that I want to be a psychic intuitive person who uses tool as my method and medium to translate information from spirit, from deceased loved ones, from our guides, guardians, ancestors. So with that, it almost does not matter if I do it through tarot, runes, bones, coins, Lenormand, Kipper, any oracle, all of the above. It does not matter the mode because it's the information that I'm aiming for. So it's like, with those things in mind, it's another reason why I don't think certification is necessary to call yourself a decent professional or such and such reader. I do think, though, the community could be worth it. Tarot community in itself, any community is wild and useful, and I enjoy camaraderie, cohortness, and those kind of things. So if you do have the ability to do a certification, I think my leaning would be anything that gives you a little bit of community so that you can work together, you can make some friends, you can build connections that way. And the bigger your network gets, the bigger your net worth can be. So it's always a good idea to mingle and hobnob and nose and rub shoulders or elbows or whatever it happens to be with people that are in your industry, in your field, doing the work that you're doing, and also looking up to people who are doing better than where you're at. That's the big thing, is always look at the people who are juggernauts in your field. Why are they successful? What makes them successful? Why are you attracted to their work? And just understanding that can help you start to begin to reverse engineer their process or the things they do or what they're interested in, so that you can kind of give yourself a little bit of context and a little bit of direction. Also, keep in mind that how you start now is not going to be anything close to where you'll be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And the reason that I can say this is, like, if you think about celebrities that we know and understand, for instance, I talk about Beyonce a lot because I like her a little bit. I remember hearing this phrase, and it stuck with me since that moment, where it took Beyonce 10 years to become Beyonce. So she didn't pop out amazing. She popped out great, good enough, and through hard work, dedication, commitment, discipline, she became a better version of herself. And then the commitment to her art on the long term began to help her differentiate herself in the marketplace. So it took 10 years of the normal grind before she got whatever it was that kind of separated her in the marketplace. And I think that is the important thing, is that so often we compare ourselves to someone when they're 12, 15 years into their craft, after they've already differentiated themselves, after they've already showed basically the easy version of the work in which they do. You're missing out on the 15 years of trials and hardships and rejections and no's and trying something out and failing, trying something else. It does well, someone steals it, something happens. We're missing all that work. So if any of that made sense, that's stuff to keep in mind when you're considering and developing who you are as a reader. Another question that she has: before you had your website, what platforms did you use to offer online tarot readings? The reason that I laugh about that is because I did a few oddities. I did psychic fairs at first because I thought it was really important for me to cut my teeth in a person-to-person working and network situation, and it worked really well for me, but the time to income ratio wasn't good enough for me, for my standards at the time, where I was spending more time and more money than I was getting back. And that may have something more to do with the fair in which I was working with than, you know, the industry in itself, but that was a situation that I had going on. I did Etsy for a little bit, and I mean a little bit, because I found that the market was very washed out, or saturated, excuse me, and I was not willing to price myself low enough to compete in that kind of marketplace, because I had already done so much work regarding understanding my financial worth that I wasn't willing to do that kind of work for that kind of price. I know some people do work on phones, like phone networks, and it turned into the same thing. I did the math, and the math didn't make sense for what I felt like my worth was as a practitioner and as a reader. And so we opted out of doing that. Mostly through Facebook, I think, for me is where I kind of, you know, my rubber hit the road on Facebook. I also did a lot of work through Instagram, but those were kind of like my areas where I promoted myself. I went live, I did videos, I did like side-by-side interviews, I did free readings. I did so many free readings, but I mostly did them on Facebook and then Instagram. So that's where I feel like I generated a little bit of audience. I generated a little bit of traction. I still try to develop all those things, so it never stops. And building your business never stops. So that's something that I wish somebody had told me, is that this is a long game. This is not the game of now. This is not the game of what you can get done in the next, 6 months to make, a profit. This is your game for the next 10 years. Think of it like that. So the moves that you make in year 1, yes, will be different in year 10, but if you're thinking about year 10 in year 1, you're going to have a much better outcome and a more realistic view of what's going on around you, surrounding tarot market, tarot world, and all those things. Oh, that's funny. Her next question is any advice regarding Etsy when it comes to selling readings and pricing them? Um, Again, I think Etsy is wildly useful for a certain person. Maybe that person is new to the platform or new to selling their services and they're still getting comfortable with the idea of putting themselves out there. That could be, the thing that's really useful. Maybe they just want to stick to either pre-recorded or written readings. That might, be the thing for them. I found for me, I also have a graphic design background, so I found that written tarot readings just took too long because I kept wanting to finesse them. I kept wanting to make them pretty. So I just niched down after a while. So sorry, let me circle back. I started doing chat readings like in Facebook Messenger. I did chat readings, I did email readings, I did PDF written readings, and then I did video pre-recorded readings. And I say pre-recorded, and I recorded them in my treehouse, and then I sent them to the person later on. So that's how we did it that way. And I just found that all of those methods were way time consuming, and the one that I felt gave me the most return on investment was the live one-on-one readings. So I just doubled down on doing that work because it worked the best for me and it was the easiest and fastest to do, and I provided the highest caliber of work when I was doing it that way. So that's what I doubled down on, and that's what I continue to do to this day. I do intermingle other ideas, other things that I want to try, other things that I want to sample, but usually it reverts back to that was 12 weeks and I'm only going to do it for that long. Now we're going to go back to video. So I tend to circle back to that. She just mentioned that she just got a PDF reading once from a reader who inspired her, and to see what a reading at that price point looks like, it was about $35 to $40, and the reading she received was about 15 pages long, so she feels like she's useless unless she is able to deliver an in-depth reading of that sort. She feels like she can't charge the same unless she's able to deliver a reading like that. Pricing. Women especially have such a hard time when it comes to pricing their worth or their value, and that's another reason why I think these low-cost platforms tend to do well, is because we're all racing to the bottom, and I didn't want to participate, so that's why I didn't. Now, when it comes to your worth as a reader, you also have to remember that what you price yourself as is going to attract a certain demographic. So if you, for instance, start your readings off at $20 for 30 minutes, you're going to get clients that are very attracted to $20 for 30 minutes. Now, some people, that is perfect. That's exactly what they need. They get enough income. They generate enough people that it's perfect for them. Great. Keep at it. For me, I kept getting clientele that didn't vibe with me at that price point, so I elevated my prices. I raised it to like $45 for 30 minutes. And it was getting better. My clientele was getting better, but I'd already by this point determined who my A client was, and I was able to figure out not only where that client tends to hang out, tends to be around, tends to exist, but also what kind of things are they interested in? What is it that they're trying to understand about themselves? What is it that they're trying to go to a reader or a medium or a psychic about? And that was really, really helpful. Now, when I got older in my skill set, so, another year down the road, I felt the need to raise my prices again because I noticed that my skill set had sharpened to a great degree, and people that I was getting a similar priced reading from, I felt like my skill was different, or my skill was a little bit sharpened, and so I wanted to make sure that I priced accordingly, so I raised my prices again, and I will continue to raise my prices each season or each year, depending on how the market is handling it, how my clients are handling it, and those kind of things. I just had my most recent price increase, I think in February of this year, and I was panicked because it almost doubled. I panicked that I was not going to be able to maintain my clientele, but I installed a few other processes to maintain my client base, and I'm still getting clients at the newest price point that I have now, and I'm so grateful and appreciative. And the time gives me the opportunity to continue to work on my other businesses and my other projects and things that I have in place. So it's that sweet spot of my pricing generates the client that is perfect for me. my pricing generates enough time so that I can work on other things without being backed or booked back to back. So it's good for me. It's right now I'm in a good sweet spot. So let's see what else she says. Her goal is to grow professionally to where she is confident in the quality of her readings while being able to charge enough to actually see the money come in. I love having different decks in my collections, but the money I've spent highly exceeds the money that I make with readings. So with that said, honestly, I would get used to that. Don't even try. And some people really kind of harp on the output versus input, thing, like it's economics, like you want your income to exceed your expenses, right? Understood completely, but directly at first, we need to remember that for the first couple of years, most businesses are not profitable. So if you at least break even, you're doing good. So when you're starting, maybe start with what your primary goal is. Is your primary goal to generate money? So, okay, what dollar figure are you looking for? And then you can basically reverse engineer to that goal. If your goal is to read confidently, like she's saying, confident, there you go, confidently. Okay, so what do you need so that you can increase your confidence? One thing that comes to mind, and I'll probably talk about this in another video, is reading all the time, every day, for anybody who will let you. And I spent a lot of time online doing that, and it got me really, really good, I would say. It got me really confident in how my brain interprets information. It got me comfortable in understanding when I'm right, when I'm wrong, not being scared of being wrong, because usually it's not that I'm wrong, I just misunderstood what I was seeing, and so now I need to unpack that a little bit more. But anything that you practice to an extreme level, to a high degree, you're going to get good at. So find any way possible. For me, I was doing tarot for 3-4 hours every night, like an insane person, for a good year, and it drove my family nuts, but I fell in love with it, and so it worked out well. Let's see what else she said here. While being able to charge enough to actually see the money coming in. See, the thing I think a lot of people want to do is to hit the ground running perfectly the first time. And the biggest thing I can remember about all the work that I've done is all the mistakes that I've made at the same time. It's like everything that I did not land perfectly at first. You get the first idea and it feels like an inspired idea, and you feel like, the angels are singing when this idea shows up for you. When you hit the ground, you hear crickets. There's nothing, there's no one, there's no interest. That's okay. That's okay. It will take a minute, and it will take augmenting. It will take doing something slightly differently. It will take effort and work over the long game. Again, I'm suggesting you think about it in terms of 10 years instead of 5 years or 2 weeks or 5 months, rather, is what I meant. Also, be considerate of the fact that you may not make full-time income for yourself for a long time. And it does not mean that you will never make that. It means that you may not make it in the way in which you expected. So for instance, I diversified my portfolio by adding a different element to my business. That works for me. That works for my family, my household, so that I can do services as a luxury so long as the bills continue to be paid. And so if, for instance, your needs are met doing another thing, you can make space, carve out time for you to do this other thing, cultivate this other thing, nurture this other thing, being your business, and you still have your needs met. It is unrealistic to expect one income to take care of your entire needs. If I could give anybody anything, it is to diversify and get multiple lines of income. Have a job, have a side hustle, have investments, have something else, have things that give you residual income or passive income, or work for you when you're sleeping, kind of thing. It is almost idiotic nowadays to think that you can live successfully on one income. I mean, yes, people do it. People can do it. My wife and I are fortunate enough to be able to live on one of our family's income, but our businesses don't like that. And we want 2 incomes. We want 2 incomes. We have a bigger ambition ahead of us, and we are cultivating this multifaceted business. I don't even know what you would call, like, umbrella that is going to lead us through the ambitions that we have and give us the life in which we would like to become accustomed and all these things. So definitely don't walk in thinking that your one little tarot cell is going to be enough. And it definitely can. Ask any reader, it can get enough to pay your bills or take care of things. But not holding a lot of pressure on yourself, not putting a lot of this has to work or all else will die kind of thing. Don't do that to yourself, because that will definitely add to the desperation, and clients can smell desperation, and you end up having desperate circumstances when you have desperation. Also, I think to circle back, I would definitely make sure that as you're developing your practice, you start to get very clear about what you will and will not do. You are under no obligation to read for anyone under any circumstances. So if you get a situation that you do not like the vibe of, or this circumstance doesn't land right for you, it is okay to say no. Full stop. That is a complete sentence. So I do not care how much someone begs. I don't care how someone it says that, you know, they really, really need something. No one needs a tarot reading. No one needs that. We like them a great deal. We like them, but no one needs this kind of work. So there's no emergencies. There's no emergencies. And I have a very unpopular opinion surrounding that. So I will keep that to myself for right now. But in that regard of people kind of showing up on your doorstep saying, knock, 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 I need a reading. It's an emergency. I need a reading. No, you don't. You probably have a decision to go make and you need to go do it. You already know what to do. Come back in 2 weeks when you've calmed down and we can look at it again. That's Abby being a hard nose. But I have policies and processes in my business because I do not like desperation. I do not like off the cuff. I need to see you in 20 minutes. No, my time is mine. My time does not belong to anybody else. And the money that they gave me can be easily given back. So no one owns my time but me. And my time is given freely in circumstances and situations in which I approve. So let me get off my soapbox there. But I just wanted to make sure that I touched on that, because so often you'll get that client or you'll get that person who shows up and makes you feel uncomfortable or asks uncomfortable questions, you knowing in advance what you will and will not read on, what you will talk about, what you won't talk about, what circumstances you will not read under, what kind of advance notice that you want, what your cancellation policy is. Do you have a refund policy? Do you want them to sign a contract before you even agree to see each other? Do you have a package deal? Do you want just like quick little mini chop up readings? Like, the more that you decide for yourself in advance, the easier you'll be able to stand under your own feet and kind of like, this is what I do. This is who I am. And people won't be able to like sway you or shift you in your work. Because one thing that I do know about being a business owner, and trust, this is a business. We have to think about it like a business, because if we think about it like, oh, this is fun and magical and whimsical, you will be sorely disappointed and you will be let down. So think of it like a business. Behave like a business person, because now you are, especially if you are working for yourself. Think of it like a business and it will behave like one. It will take care of you like one. I would definitely not recommend doing like, prosperity spells every 2 weeks. I don't suggest that, but I do suggest that you learn about business, that you learn about your books, that you learn about what it takes to do bookkeeping in your particular circumstance, understand your tax liability, understand everything under the moon when it comes to your business, because it is your business. Okay. I hope that makes sense. She also leads up with, I would love any thoughts, recommendations, or any advice that you can share. Thanks so much for considering making this video, and she really appreciates us. So is there anything else that I would recommend? Be willing to change, because the idea that you have at first is probably not going to be stellar or amazing. You'll need to augment, you'll need to adjust, audit, and pivot, double down on what works. And I mean double down on what works. So if you find that everyone is gravitating to this one piece of content that you're creating, or this one thing that you're doing, or this one service that's really, really going well for you, double down. How can you maximize that? How can you make that better? How can you do it, on 10 instead of this, 5 that you're working on? Those would be like the big thing that I would suggest and recommend. When it comes to your tools are great. The cards are great. The cards are lovely. People like the cards. I would focus on getting good at delivering quality, accurate information. And don't even judge yourself on actually the accuracy. Just make sure you're getting to the heart of what is being asked for, the heart of what is trying to be known. And over time, figure out how you can niche down as to what kind of reader you are. over the years, I've realized I'm learning about myself that I'm very much an ancestral mediumship kind of reader. That is what I really get inspired by. Yes, I can totally dig into your psychic-y stuff of what your husband or we all have a baby or any of this like future fortune telling stuff. I can totally do that with my eyes closed. But where my heart sings is actually getting you back in contact with your ancestors and having that open dialogue. That makes me so happy. So that's where I've niched down. That's where I've kind of zeroed in, and that's where I'm building my brand, is surrounding that kind of language, iconography, visual representations, and the like. So I hope that makes sense. I hope all that makes sense. I know it's a bit of a ramble. Looks like I'm about 30 minutes in, maybe a little under by the time I get this all clipped. But I think I hit the high points, and if anything comes up, I'm sure I'll talk about it in some way, shape, or form. But Miss Olga, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this recording for you. I look forward to sharing this with my tarot community, with my clients, with my customers, because I do think this is quite useful information to think about when you're walking that line of going into being this kind of individual. So thanks so much. Take care. Bye. Hey Trakins, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, come and join us over on Facebook or over on Patreon, where we can do twice monthly psychic sessions and you can stay in the know regarding all things the Ancestral Keys Project. If you don't know what that is, come and find out.